And as a reminder, after our presentation today, we'll have a number of demos at our booth. You can see there at 1 o'clock, our recruit management system for the athletes. At 2 p.m., our college coach app. Tom Snickers is going to cover that. It's fantastic. As a college coach, it's a huge upgrade and something that I'm using daily. And then at 3 p.m., Coach Packet, which is our event software that we use with a number of the partners. We'll run through a demo of that. But most importantly, you guys all see that QR code on the screen, something that I hope everybody's familiar with how to use now. Pull out your camera. It should take you right to that website. And that's where you nominate a player, right? Because that's ultimately what we're here for. It wouldn't bother me one bit if you didn't listen to a word I said the rest of the day. As long as you do that, as long as you're logging in, nominating those athletes, and essentially help change their life. So welcome to the $1 Million Minute. I'm Nelson Gord, the director of baseball at NCSA. I'm also the head baseball coach at Harper College, run the Illinois Travel Baseball Club. I've done a number of different things in the game. But the thing I'm most passionate about is this. It's the recruiting end. It's something that didn't come as easy to me. I was a multi-sport athlete, I think a pretty decent one, but nobody in my family had ever been to college before. And there were just a lot of uncertainty around it, a lot of speed bumps, a lot of roadblocks. But I'm so grateful for the coaches that were in my life that made it possible for me to get to the next level and ultimately, change where I'm at today and allow me to live a better life than the generation before me. And I'm so grateful for all that they've done. And with me today is Chris Wiedelspach. He's our director of team solutions. He'll be covering our team edition product here shortly. So Chris, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, thanks a ton for joining today. I sure do miss seeing everybody walking around at the convention. Hopefully next year in Chicago, things are calmed down and we can all meet in person. I've been a player, I've been a coach, I've been a director of a club. I played Division I baseball at Yale. Got to play a little bit after that. Coached, owned a baseball club that I branded under Eli Sports down in the Atlanta area. I had a couple nationally ranked teams. We did really well with recruiting, and that's actually what led me to NCSA about 7 or 8 years ago now. So I'm excited to show you guys Team Edition as it's my baby, and really it's a great way that you guys are going to be able to keep tabs on the guys that you're nominating for these free memberships.
And a pretty wild thing about that is some NCSA trivia. Chris and I actually started on the very same day, on the very same team, in very different roles than we're in now. So our history at the company is run deep, and there's a lot of good stories along the way. But we're happy to be here today. So before I get into kind of the nuts and bolts, I did want to dedicate this presentation to two guys that were pretty impactful in my life that unfortunately we lost during 2020. Dick Palmquist and Len DeForty. For those that are amateur coaches, travel coaches, that you may feel like you don't have as much of an impact because you're not a head high school coach or a head college coach. Know that neither of these guys were that, right? Dick Palmquist coached me when I was 14 years old, up until pretty much the day that he passed. He was taking care of the fields at the local park down the street, but just a really amazing person that had a great deal of impact in my life. And the other one's Len DeForty. I know a lot of guys that I can see that are on this call right now knew Len. Len dedicated his life to the game. He dedicated his life to changing the future of young people through the game. Again, was not a college coach, was not a high school coach, worked in the Little League, worked in the community, worked with Triple ABA for a long time. But I remember the meetings that we would have for our local college summer league, and you would just sit there and try to soak up the wisdom. Had the chance to sit down and talk to him numerous times over the years, and he really helped put me on the right path to trying to help the next generation. So couldn't do this without, recognizing those two individuals and the impact they had on me and many, many others. So the reason we're here, NCSA is a part of the Reigning Champs family. It's a number of companies that you saw on the first slide earlier. It includes Front Rush, Reigning Champs Experiences, Z-Recruit. We have the All In Award. We've just brought on a new company, collegeadvisor.com. But when you look at success, this is how we measure it: the number of lives that we're able to change. Right? There are obvious financial numbers that you look at. There's different KPIs that everybody goes through. Okay, but really, when it comes down to it, those are the things that we celebrate. If you look at the numbers across all of our brands, across all the companies, these are the chest beating ones. These are the, hey, look at us. And that's all good and great, right? Everybody can read and see, hey, it's wonderful that 5.8 million athletes are in the network, or there's 41,000 coaches between Front Rush and Coach Packet and NCSA. Okay, but the thing that really stands out is this one. There are 0 student athletes. We don't turn away anyone for the lack of ability to pay. It's something since our inception, since the company started and was founded by Chris Kraus 20 years ago, that he was passionate about. It's what drew me to the company. It's what motivates me and gets me up every morning. And especially in the climate that we're in right now, the trouble around COVID, some of the social issues and economic issues that we're facing, something that we could really champion ourselves on. And it's why I probably am annoying with many of you asking you to nominate players, but they need it, right? These guys need it more than ever. I knew how much I needed it as an athlete, and I know that there are plenty that are just like myself, or plenty others that I've seen that need it even more. Okay, so I'm begging of you, again, to use that QR code, nominate a guy, and pass that information along. So the $1 Million Minute was inspired just by the idea, if we can get 300 coaches on today, the average retail value of that MVP membership that these kids are given is around $3,400, right? That's our Rolls Royce, our cream of the crop. That's the top of the heap. That is the ultimate package that we provide to athletes. And again, they're getting that for nothing. So simple math, 300 times 3,400, that's over $1 million. But when you dig into it a little bit more, something that I brought up just a little while ago, nearly 20% of athletes are first generation college students. Myself being one of them, many of the kids that we work with fall into that category. And the difference between, being a college grad and just having that high school diploma is so great, right? So if you look at it through that lens, here you can see the average earnings over a lifetime on a weekly, monthly, annual, and lifetime basis. The difference between, again, graduating just from high school and having that bachelor degree, that 4-year degree, brings us right back to that $1 million number. Okay, it's crazy to think about. I had to do the calculations a few times out of the article that I was reading, but it's the truth. Right? So by getting these kids to the next level, by providing that opportunity, not only is NCSA providing $1 million in services, but you as a coach are making a $1 million impact on those kids. Okay, and I had a chance to speak with a bunch of coaches over the past several days, and one conversation stood out. Last night I was on the phone till about 11:30, and this was what we were talking about. The fact that for many of us, we don't have roster restrictions at the junior college level, at the Division III level. I know there's some problems when it comes to Division I and the scholarship and the roster caps and everything. But if you can find those guys that maybe might not fit your player profile completely, maybe there's something missing, there's something that they need to actually get on the field, but you could provide them with a roster spot and help them stay on that path and help them work towards that degree. This is the difference that it's making, right? Forget playing in professional baseball, forget being all conference, all American, whatever. you are making $1 million difference in their life. And for many of the kids, that's what they need. They just need something to play for. They need something to show up to the field for. They need something to sit in the front row of the class for. And being a part of your program, being a part of a college team, being a part of a family is what's going to keep them engaged and what's going to keep them from falling by the wayside. And I think we all would agree that we've seen far too much of that over, the past several years, but, more specifically the past 10 months. Okay, so we really need your help, and these guys need your help. So if you break down those numbers, I'm actually going to change the title of the presentation, because if it's 300 athletes, you get that dollar figure. The new title of it is the $287,664,000 minute. That's super cheesy and dad joke of me, but it's the truth, right? Like that's the ultimate impact that we can have if we can convert guys that were on the border, on the edge of going a different direction into finding an opportunity and getting that college degree. So what do they get? I can run on the list real quick right there, but they get full access to NCSA's tools, all the resources that we provide, the online recruiting classes that we'll show here in a second, our match analysis, which I think is a very, very powerful tool. It makes them aware of schools and places that they didn't even know exist, right? Opens doors that they didn't even know were out there. So it's something that really does help them. We have the guided classes, we have the messaging center. They'll get 4 professionally edited highlight videos, live support 7 days a week. They'll get Smart Track, which is our college funding, our financial aid software that they'll have access to, ACT and SAT tutoring through our partner Method Test Prep, and then a personal recruiting coach. A person, just as many of these guys might have hitting coaches or pitching coaches, this is someone just to help kind of role play, help them with the communication skills, help them, uncover some of the opportunities that are out there. And many of those guys you might be familiar with, right? Here's our head recruiting coaches at NCSA, and these are the individuals that the players that you nominate would ultimately end up working with. Okay, and I would encourage you, I would assist you, I would help you get in touch with those guys, because we all know when everybody's pulling in the same direction, when we have a recruiting coach and hitting coach and a high school or travel coach and community leaders pulling in the same direction, magical things happen, right? So we don't want to be in place of you. We want to work hand in hand and accompany you on the journey. In addition to working with those guys, a really neat feature is they'll have the ability to go to classes, every day of the week. And here's just a small sampling of some of the things that are coming up this week. So just as they need to work on their skills, these are things that a lot of guys are lacking, right? They don't know how to send an effective email. They don't know how to talk on the phone with a coach and what questions to ask. They don't know how, roster sizes work and how it works at the next level. Okay, and I think the really impactful thing that I recognize with this is these are all transferable skills. When you're talking about fielding a ground ball or, hitting approach or, how to spin a breaking ball, once they're done playing, there's not much they're going to be able to do with that. But learning how to communicate, learning how to put yourself out there, learning how to market yourself, those are things that are going to stay with them. And when they transition from high school to college and then college into the professional world, okay, those are skills that are going to stay with them. Okay, those are things that will last a lifetime and things that hopefully, in your program is something that you highlight and something that you continue to work on, because I think we all would agree, and a common theme throughout this weekend and past ABCA conventions is that we're really in the business and the game of developing young men, right? Yes, we're in player development. Yes, we like to win ball games, but we're here to develop these guys into the next generation of leaders. Okay, and it's something that I think they could really benefit from, and I think we all could. So I am going to give you one more reminder. Please use that QR code. If you don't know how to use it or it's not working, you can also just type in the website abca.ncsa.team into your browser. That'll bring you to a page that also has the nomination form. But again, this is the nearly $300 minute or $300 million minute in lives and in ways that we can impact these guys. So I'm just going to give you a minute to do that, and then I'm going to hand it off to Chris, that's going to cover our Team Edition product and how you're able to then follow these guys that you've just nominated. So Chris, you want to go ahead and take it over, bud?
Yep. Thank you, Nelly. I'm going to steal screen share here real quick. Set up, Nelly?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Great. Well, again, thanks for joining, guys. And I guess as a housekeeping item here, the order of operations for everybody should be: you nominate a player, you fill out the form that we've got. That player will then go through the process of getting an all-in award. They'll have a premium membership on our highest level MVP. That player will then land in your Team Edition account. Okay. We're looking at a Team Edition account here that's built out. This is the New Hampshire prospect at the club with extremely high college placement. Their coaches would certainly agree that a big reason for that is they have eyes on what their guys are doing, and they know the guys that may be slipping through the cracks, so they can have those conversations along the way. Team Edition gives you all the tools you need to do stuff like that. So your Team Edition account will start with the one player in your account. You guys should build that out to include anybody that you want to help, okay? Or anybody in your club that is college facing and wants to be a college ball player. So when you guys get a login to Team Edition, which we will send you in the coming days, you're going to log into this page, which is called the dashboard, okay? And the dashboard has a lot of functionality for you. It shows you who's logging in. You guys can run searches by colleges here. It shows you some college programs that are logged in right now, looking at player profiles. So if in the back of your mind, you know you've got a D1 kid that wants to stay Midwest, then you guys can always pop an email to the coaching staff at Butler, just right here through these links. On this page, where you're going to spend most of your time is looking at these updates, okay? You want updates happening all the time for your players. We can see that on January 7th, Lyndon Wood looked at this athlete. We can actually see that this kid favorited the school, then filled out their questionnaire, and then wouldn't you know it, the coaches flocked to his profile and checked this kid out. This is not on accident. You want your players to be engaged in this process. That's something that most club and high school programs preach. In this world where there are millions of athletes in our database, you really can't just build a profile and let it sit there and hope the right college program stumbles and trips over you. Yes, it happens, but I would strongly encourage every athlete that I ever worked with to build a target list of schools and communicate with programs and fill out their questionnaires, make sure you're documented internally, communicate with those coaches. So what we can see here, like if you want to know what is Kyan doing, just click on that stuff, okay? This will be your view of what your player is doing, okay? We call this the player show page. You guys have a ton of information that you can poke through and use. So for example, this kid has activity with 28 schools. We know that the coaching staff at Hudson looked at this kid, and they've actually looked at him 3 times. They're following his profile. That means that the coaching staff up here in Bangor, Maine, is getting updates about any time that this left-handed pitcher changes something about his profile, okay? That might be a great place for you guys to insert yourself. Go to bat for your kids. Again, this is a free resource for you guys to use, and it's just giving you the opportunity to piggyback off of what your players are doing. So recommend college. What that's going to do is send an email to your player and make sure that they know that you support them reaching out to that school. Contact coaches. That'll actually pull up an email addressed to that college coaching staff about that player, which you guys will be able to add whatever color you want to it to get an email out to that staff, okay? This will work with whatever email server you guys use. So whether you use Outlook like me, or you use Hotmail or Comcast or whatever it may be, that's going to work for you. This is opening you guys up to our Rolodex of college coaches. So coach activity, that's an important one. You want your guys to be in front of a lot of schools, and this is where you're going to track that. Target list. This is how your athlete is going to help you guys understand what types of schools are they interested in. Okay. In this case, the athlete's got 59 schools on his target list. You guys can pop through this list really easily and do the same things, recommend schools, communicate with coaches, whatever it may be. Athlete evaluation. Now, your athletes are all going to be premium members of ours, the ones that you nominate. We're going to control the ranking of a player. We give you guidelines on what is an average Division II catcher look like today. That's all cooked right into Team Edition for you guys. A lot of club programs print this out. A lot of facilities print this out and just have it at their shop, because the last thing that we all want is a right-handed pitcher who throws 72 miles an hour and his dad thinks that he's going to go play at Vanderbilt next year. So use the guidelines to really help set expectations for your club. One thing I would encourage you to do, especially about all these athletes who are going to receive the All-In Award, give us a text eval on that player. Okay? Make this a scouting report on the kid. Give the college coaches some information that they can't get on video. Okay? Kyan is one of the hardest workers on my team. He is the guy that if he shows up 10 minutes early, he thinks he's 5 minutes late, right? One of those kids. So add some information like that and rest easy, because your players and their families are not able to see this information. It is only for college coaches, okay? So feel free to give an evaluation on your players here that then college coaches will see. Preferences. So this is the athlete telling you what are they interested in. This is quite a smattering. For some reason, this kid has no interest in going to Wisconsin or Iowa or Nebraska, but he's cool going just about everywhere else. We could see, he's interested in business management and marketing. He's giving you some information about what types of schools he's interested in. Statistics. You guys are going to be able to pop in here and see what they have on their profile as their key statistics. So, I look at this page, the player show page, as a very bottom-up way to look at your club when it comes to recruiting and help that player. Some of the highest level clubs in the country have individual recruiting meetings with players and families, and this would be the page that they pull up to say, hey, Kyan, here's what's going on. This is what I see you're doing. This is what you need to do next. Okay? So we're just opening the curtain and showing you what is Kyan doing and what are college coaches doing with him. So, great page. You guys will use this a lot. If you get Kyan into your facility, he throws a bullpen, you get it on video, you want to add it for him, go ahead. You guys can click on this video updated section, and then you have the opportunity to add clips to the profiles. Okay? Now, this next tab up here is called activity. Where that individual page I look at is bottom up, this activity page I look at is top down. This will show you all the athletes that you have with profiles, so that you can track who's doing a great job and who might need a kick in the pants. Now, this club, for example, they have 5 different rosters in this. You guys will start with your one player, you'll build it out, then you'll be able to organize this. If you just coach one team, you'll have one team. If you're a director of a club and you have 8 recruitable teams, all 8 teams can land there. Then you can always drop it down and say, okay, I just care about this group right now. What are my 16 U's doing? Now, looking at this page, we can see really who's doing a great job, who's just getting started, and who needs a little bit of help. These athletes all have video and they're sending out email, but you look at this kid, Maxwell, and his profile kind of sucks. He doesn't have a video. He's only sent out 1 email to college coaches, but he doesn't even have a video on his page, and I hate to tell you, but college coaches don't recruit writers. So the reality is this kid needs a video. You guys could easily pull Max aside at practice and say, hey, dude, I saw on your profile that you're starting to communicate with college coaches. That's great. I also saw that you don't have a video on your profile yet. That's not great. Why don't we plan on staying 20 minutes late today so we can get some of that footage, and I'll help you get it up on your profile. Okay? Constantly be tracking what your players are doing. Now, underneath the athlete's name, it will say premium or it will say free. If it's a premium account, that means that they have our help. Okay? those memberships that Nelson referenced a little bit earlier, Champion, Elite, MVP, if it says premium, they have one of those offerings from us, so they're getting our help. You probably don't need to help those athletes as much. If it says free under their name, you probably have to help them a little bit more. Okay, they don't have a recruiting coach. They don't have somebody that's evaluating them. They don't have somebody on our side who's their recruiting coach, who's meeting with them and their family monthly, quarterly, to make sure that they're doing what needs to be done. Okay, now, you guys will have access to all of that data right here on this page, so use it. You know, I was really proud when I was a club director that I had 100% placement a few years in a row. And it was hard, it was extremely labor intensive, but I had great players and I had committed guys, and I think me and my coaching staff, we did a great job of helping these kids understand how recruiting works. Education's a big part of that. If you guys want to really educate your athletes about the platform, a great place to start is this resources tab, okay? If you click on resources, that will open up this other page, and there are articles, and there are drills, and there are recorded webinars and videos, and a whole litany of things that you guys can share with your players to make sure that they're getting real, great information that they can use, okay? All of the information that we give you guys is approved by the NCAA, NAIA, JUCO before you'd ever see it here. So if you wanted to send out a webinar about emailing coaches the right way, it lives right here. I wanted to touch on this because if some of your athletes are not clients of ours, they can't pop in here and just sign up for one of these classes. It exists behind a paywall. That being said, because you guys, as coaches, will have Team Edition, you guys can pop in here and distribute this link to your whole organization, okay? So use the resources section to really distribute information to players about how recruiting really works, okay? Some of the toughest conversations that I have in Team Edition are with coaches who from our age groups, went and played in college, played some pro ball, stuff like that. You know, recruiting's changed a lot in the last 5 years. It's changed a ton in the last 20 years. 20 years ago when I went through this, I'm in my mid-30s now, there's no such thing as a smartphone. It hadn't been invented yet. There was no such thing as YouTube. YouTube was developed when I was in college, right? Parents and coaches who have that sort of old school view of recruiting, oftentimes that doesn't help, okay? We need to get these kids up to speed on how recruiting really works today. If you want to get recruited, you have to have an online presence. Your profile has to be great. That's why it's easy to flag a kid like this and say you don't have a video. Well, no doubt that this kid is not getting as much attention as this kid. We have to make sure that they're doing these things. We have to make sure that they're reaching out and engaging with college programs that are realistic for their playing abilities. Not everybody can play at Vanderbilt, right? So we need to, as coaches, make sure that these kids are educated about how recruiting works today. So leverage that resources tab. On the colleges tab, this is a way that you guys can run searches and figure out how to distribute your roster to a group of schools before you play in a showcase in their backyard, okay? If you're going to play in Beat to the East in Pittsburgh and you want to make sure that you're touching some of those coaches before you get there with your roster, it's really easy to do, okay? You can select some schools or some states, you can select division levels, academics, majors, all kinds of things, and then when you run these searches, it's going to show you here's every school that fits. Okay, in this case, there are 3 pages of up to 50 per page. So between 100 and 150 schools in the state of Pennsylvania that play baseball. Okay, you can click on any of these schools. Like, for example, I see that Grove City is 6 views, and they're following a couple of these kids. You know, as a coach, if you want to know who should I talk about when I reach out to the coaches at Grove, just click on it. It looks like all of their activity is coming with this one athlete. Okay, so the college show page is something that you guys will use and leverage to make sure that you're communicating with the right people. Roster, this is where you guys are going to make changes and add players and take players out when they graduate from your Team Edition portal. There's no limit on how many players you can put in your Team Edition portal. If you're a club coach and you have 25 high school age teams and you've got upwards of 350 players, all of them can live here, okay? If you want to add players one at a time, you can do that. That seems to be a little bit labor intensive if we're talking about a big number like that. So one of the easiest ways to do it is you hit upload roster. There will be a template there for you to upload your roster, and you can upload it. Okay, all those players will land in Team Edition. They're getting free profiles. You're getting visibility to those profiles. I encourage you to add additional staff members. You know, when I had a club, I had 20 or so paid coaches. I would say about 6 or 7 of those guys would be involved in recruiting. I would have all of them on this portal. Okay, when you're adding staff members, if you click Administrator Yes, then they have some edit functionality like you do. So for example, they can add videos, okay? They can recommend schools. If you want somebody to be read-only so they can just look over the shoulder of these kids, then you don't give them administrator status. Okay, and the last thing I want to touch base on here is something that, especially during COVID, has been a huge need that we filled for thousands of club teams. Fundraising. We work with a group called TeamRaiser. TeamRaiser works with countless college programs in non-revenue generating sports to make sure that they can pay for their programs. Works for high school programs. Works for club programs. And so we could see Belmont Abbey, their lacrosse team uses this. The Citadel, that's Division I track, but obviously track and field doesn't get money like the basketball or football team because they don't get paid $1 million to go and get beat on by Alabama in football, right? So you guys can use TeamRaiser as a GoFundMe for your club. None of this money has to be used for us, it's for you, okay? It's just a COVID-friendly way to raise some funds and make sure that you guys can get into that great tournament, or you can pay another coach to help your boys out. So look at TeamRaiser, build it out, and you'll be happy you did. Everybody likes free money. Your athletes will get a post, they'll post it on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. Their own market goes to bat for them. You guys cash the check, okay? So that's Team Edition in a nutshell. So just to reiterate, when you guys recommend a player, that player will have premium access here on our highest level membership. That player will fall into your Team Edition portal. That's not the only kid you want to help. So use the roster tab to build out your organization. Add your staff and keep tabs on your boys. Okay? So thank you for your time, guys. And like I said, everybody get to that link that we've provided to make sure that you get somebody in on the All-In Award.
Thanks for that, Chris. You know, a lot of information there. I know it was probably a lot to digest and fully understand, but I'm sure everybody took something from there that they could use for their organization. And, you know, we'll answer questions. We'll be back at the booth here shortly and have a number of great demos that are set up. And just a few things coming out of that. I said before that Chris and I started at NCSA at the same point in time. You know, when I first went to NCSA, the reason I did is because a number of players in our program, both at the high school level when I was at Notre Dame College Prep and also with the Illinois Indians, were getting opportunities at places, some of which that I knew, others I wasn't as familiar with. So I was kind of scratching my head and wondering how that was going on. Turns out that in one class in particular, our 2014 grad class, we had 14 early commits, 9 I knew about, 5 I was scratching my head, but it turns out that 12 out of the 14 were actually using NCSA due to them attending a USA baseball event, through some other things that they had done. And that was really the conduit to it. So I got in my car. Fortunately for me, NCSA is in Chicago, so it was just a 30, 40-minute drive, and sat down with the founder of the company. And after that meeting, it became pretty obvious to me, how it was working and how they were experiencing that success. But the thing that I did point out was that the reason that high school coaches, the reason that travel coaches don't always trust NCSA is because we couldn't see behind the curtain, right? Couldn't see behind that. And when you can't see it and you don't understand it, you feel like it's competing against you, and that's not a good spot to be in, right? So catch us up to speed to current day. We have a tool that now allows you to do that, allows you to interact with those things, and just provides you with a ton of different ways to help these guys get to where they want to go. So again, there's the QR code right there to nominate a player. Thank you to the dozens that have done it so far. It's amazing when you see just the areas in which these kids are coming from and the coaches that are doing it. And then, Chris and Aaron from our Team Edition team, again, will be at the booth to answer your questions. If you go to that ABCA link, their contact information can also be found there. But we really want to get you guys up and running. And it's something that is important. It is something that will help out. It's something that, will change these guys' lives. And another conversation that I had this weekend was talking about, how do we create these opportunities? I'm going to encourage you college coaches. I know there's a handful that are on right now. Carve out those roster spots. Look down the list. Look at guys that might not fit the typical mold, right? And help them get to the next level. If you're sitting there right now and you can't think of players that you want to nominate, reach out to other coaches, reach out to other people in your community. NCSA works in 36 different sports now because we just added gymnastics and cheerleading. So if there are athletes in any sport that you know of, if you have a niece or a nephew that's been affected in any way, shape, or form, we're here to help, right? That's the bottom line. That's like I said before, what gets me out of bed in the morning, how we measure success as a company, and why we do this each and every day. So following up the Team Edition demo, and going back to the booth and having the chance to talk to Chris and Aaron at 1 p.m. today, 1 p.m. Eastern, Pat O'Malley is going to be covering the whole recruit management system. So I know there's also some coaches on here that have children of their own that are aspiring athletes. That's a great opportunity to see how to best utilize that, right? So join us at 1 o'clock at the booth for that session with Pat. I think it's going to be outstanding. If you haven't met Pat already, he's a pretty high energy dude, and he'll be ready to rock and show you all the things that you need to know. Following that up at 2 p.m. For you college coaches, I mentioned it before, that College Coach app is awesome, right? The ability to call players, text players, email players, look at their profiles. The communication tools are outstanding, but then just the quantity, right? You could be out at an event, out in the tournament, and I think that's kind of the real value in NCSA to a college coach in a lot of ways, is it's just the largest network. It's the absolute largest collection of athletes anywhere in one database, right? So if you need a contact number, if you need to get in touch with a player that you happen across or that you hear about, it's a great place to start the search. And then at 3 p.m. For guys that are either attending events or guys that host tournaments, right? I know a lot of you colleges, you host events at your field and you're handing out paper packets and doing stuff like that. Coach Packet is a tool that we've designed that is free for those event coordinators to use, right? So through simple registration, we're able to input the information. It comes up on an app, and then by utilizing a QR code or a website or a pre-event email, you're able to distribute the list of players and all of their information with the college coaches that are going to be in attendance. Okay, so again, a great tool that's going to help you as individuals, but then more importantly is going to help those student athletes find those ideal places to play. So that's our collection, our software suite, if you want to call it that, of different things that we're talking about today. So we hope that you dig in, that you're able to utilize those. And again, there's that QR code. Guys, I can't stress it enough. It's our chance to make a difference. I don't know how many people were on the diversity call last night, but there was a lot of talk around the socioeconomic barriers for a lot of these kids. How do we help get them to the next level? And sure, equipment is expensive, okay, but opportunities are priceless, and this is a chance for you to make that. I know personally I can't give back $1 million in cash, like some of the major league players that were on that call last night, but I can give what I can give. I can provide what we're able to provide, and that's through this program, this tool, and the coaches that are on the line. So Chris, anything that you want to add to the presentation today, or anything that I didn't touch on that you feel is important?
One thing I would just piggyback on that you referenced is, with COVID, more people are in need than ever, and you guys have an opportunity to help a kid, and you should take that. But you should also connect this, send the link to a few other coaches that you know that are in that same situation. The ABCA, amazing event put on by amazing people every year. And the fact of the matter is, we're not reaching enough club and high school coaches that have direct access to those kids that are in need and need the help now. We talk a lot about college baseball and professional baseball, but it's that 14, 15-year-old kid whose parents lost their job because of COVID. And we can make a huge difference in that kid's life. And you guys know coaches, and those coaches know the players. And so please share this information with your friends in coaching and your coaching community. Like I said, it's not sport specific. Like Nelson said, we do this for 36 sports, so there's not a scholarship sport you can name that we don't help kids in. Baseball just happens to be our second biggest.
Yeah, and one thing also with that, I think I put it out in one of my tweets this week. As I said, there's no strings attached, right? I think that might be one of the big hurdles anytime that you're attempting to give away, a large sum of anything to a group. They're like, well, there has to be a catch. It's too good to be true. And the reality is, we've recognized over time that, a lot of these kids that we're reaching through this program are not ones that would be paying customers of ours. So we're not losing that opportunity. But what we are doing is creating opportunity for them, and then also feeding our most important lifeline, and that's the network of college coaches, right? If we can give access to guys that otherwise would not be in the system because a showcase event or a travel ball tournament or whatever was too expensive, this is their chance to be seen, right? It's their chance to get their information out there, get their name out there, and it serves that coach community. And that's one thing, it started because of compliance, right? You can't charge both a family and a college or university. So we've separated those two, but it's really become a lifestyle. And I've referenced him before, but Chris Kraus, our founder, he would always talk about stocking the shelves for the coaches, right? Because that's what you're doing. When you're going onto any website, you're going to any event, you're shopping for athletes that fit the program that you've created, that fit the culture that you've created. Some are skill driven, some are academic driven, some are personality driven. But the commonality is they're a guy that you want to be around for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Okay. And if we can give you more access, or we can give you access to more players, you're going to be a lot more successful as a program. And that, it's going to be transformational ultimately. So I know that this sounds a little bit long winded, and like I'm pleading with you, because the reality is I'm tired of watching guys fall by the wayside, guys that deserve opportunities not getting those. And that's why we need to step up and really make a difference here and do what we say we want to do, right? And that's help these young men. So we appreciate you guys. I know we do have a little bit of time here in this Expo theater, but again, we will be going back to the booth shortly to run through some other demos and to answer any of the questions that you have, be a little bit more face to face. So please join us over there. So Chris, anything else in closing here, bud?
Well, thanks so much for joining today, guys. I know schedules are busy, and especially when you're at your house or school, you can always find something else to do. So we really appreciate you guys joining us. And like Nelson said, no strings attached. Let's help a whole bunch of kids.
Yeah. So thank you, coaches. Thank you, ABCA. Thank you, everybody that attended and is sharing this message. If you need anything, we're here for you. So we appreciate it.
We'll stick around. If anybody has questions, feel free to pop them into the chat window on the bottom or the chat window through Pathable.
Hey, Chris, there was a question earlier and I answered it in the chat, but if you want to elaborate on this one a little bit, one of the coaches asked, when do you recommend a player contact us, junior or senior high school? So my response was that our path to college in the program starts at the 8th grade year to help develop some of the communication skills and the discovery process. But do you have any examples of guys that you've worked with in the past, or families or coaches that you've talked to that, did it earlier, did it later? What's that sweet spot?
Yeah, the thing is, I've helped thousands of kids through this process, right? So have you, Nelson. I've heard families say the most crazy things, and coaches say the most crazy things, and we get those players and parents, and they're like, look, my kid's going first in the draft, we don't need any help. And you're like, okay, great. And then they come back junior year and they're like, I've never heard two things from parents or coaches, and it's, I wish we would have started later, and I wish we would have had less help. Those are the two things I've never heard. And so the NCAA restriction is 13 years old and older. Once they turn 13, they're eligible to have a profile here and start interacting with college programs. It's a great time to get educated so you don't miss anything, right? I'm not saying you have to start at 13 or you're not going to have success. The hottest grad years right now are 2022 to 2025. Those get the most clicks and the most searches in our database. And 22s will soon be phased out due to commitments, and schools sort of done with that class. And so when you think about which kids are we trying to help, it's everybody. 13 to 18, we've got to make sure that they're realistic about where they fit. If a kid doesn't start till senior year, they're probably not going to get many high-level Division I looks, because most of those programs will be done recruiting. So I'd say, regardless of what age the athlete is, my message is the same. You've got to have an online presence. You've got to communicate with coaches. You've got to be realistic about where you can play and what schools have, what you're looking for. Where would you be comfortable? Are you big school, small school? Are you really wanting to study forensic accounting, in which case you just cut down from 1,700 baseball schools to 12, right? We've got to know those types of things. And if we have some time to figure that out, it always works out better. So sophomores, juniors, yes, they're really hot, especially live events, live scouting. Obviously, none of that going on right now during COVID. A couple years ago, I would have said freshman year is the ideal time to get seen live for the first time from a program. Now it's a little different with COVID, but I would say start them early, keep them in the program. They're just going to get more education. They're going to get more exposure the longer they're in.
And speaking of it being a little bit different, or a lot of it different with COVID, what have you heard from guys both in the college coaching community, but then specifically to the travel programs that you work with, about creative ways that they're trying to get their players out there, and different methods of getting that done?
Yep, I have conversations with high-level club teams daily, and what most of the clubs are doing now, more than they've ever done before in the past, is recording things on video. Making sure that those videos are accessible to college coaches. So having a free YouTube channel where you can host video for your whole organization. Stuff like that goes a long way. You know, I can't tell you how many clubs I've talked to, some of the highest level clubs in the country, and I ask them, like, hey, did you get to do anything meaningful this summer or fall when it comes to showcasing? And, you know, yeah, they went to a tournament, but there was, you know, 5% of the college coaches that were there last year because a lot of schools locked up those budgets and they don't want their coaches traveling due to COVID. So having the ability to support what they're doing on video and to get that video in the right hands, because Nelson, as you can attest, as a college coaches are watching more videos than they ever have before. They're looking at more profiles than they ever have before. And so making sure that that stuff is squared away and that you guys have a role in that and you're providing that for your athletes is a huge win. So leverage video, especially because there's not as much live scouting going on right now.
Yeah, and that's, you know, you mentioned it about being a college coach, and again, a call to action for you guys that are college coaches out there. Carve out spots, right? Find ways to provide opportunity. I've had over the years countless offers to go coach at the college level as an assistant at different division levels. Some of them would require moving, and it didn't excite me. When the opportunity came about at Harper College, which is 10 minutes from home, that was obviously a big factor, having 3 young children. But the thing that really appealed to me was that being a Division III junior college, I don't have scholarships, but it is affordable, right? It's more affordable to go to Harper College than it was when I was the head coach at Notre Dame College Prep, right, for a high school student. So if I could make that less expensive, if I could help out in that way, plus some of the other financial aid programs that we have in place over there, that's going to change so many kids. The other thing, and I asked this in the interview process, you know, what am I capped on the number of players that I could roster? And the answer was no. And I jokingly said last night to another coach, I'm like, hey, I don't care if I have 140 guys in my roster and we travel 20 or 30 and the rest of the guys stay back and play 3 inter squad games. Like, I think that's such a cool thing and such a thing that people yearn for. Like, they want to be on the field, right? And if you have the numbers that are able to support that, then again, you're inching them closer towards that college degree. You're keeping them on the right path. You're surrounding them with a family of individuals that they might not be getting at home. Okay, so that's my call to action for you guys that are college coaches, and I guess also for the travel coaches, right? When you're helping your players, look outside the box. You know, you referenced Vanderbilt and some of the big programs a few times, but even get outside your own network. And this is a great opportunity through the ABCA. You know, I've been on calls all week with coaches that I wasn't familiar with before. But see what's out there and, you know, help your players in that discovery process and provide them with the tools and teach them to fish, right? And I think that's really what Team Edition does. I think that's what we try to do through NCSA, is giving them or help building that skill set that allows them to do it for themselves and be self-sufficient, rather than just handing it over and say, hey, I know this coach, I think this will be a good fit, you should go there. Because it is a process, and you want to make sure that you're in the right fit. So I think we do have just a few more minutes here. Again, if you guys have any other questions, I know that you're hopping to different presentations right now. But again, I'd welcome you to our booth. We'll be heading right over there after this, and we can continue with some more Q&A. So I think that's all I have. Chris, you're good?
Yep, we're good. Thanks again for everybody's time.
All right, you guys have a great day, great rest of the convention, and we'll see you in Chicago next year.